What's 100 years old and takes place north of Canada? We'll tell you this week on Motoring 2007.
TSN's Motoring 2007 is brought to you by Q from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Michelin, a better way forward.
It was renamed the North American International Auto Show in 1989, but for many it will always be known as the Detroit Auto Show. It doesn't get any bigger or any better, and for people like us, it's simply a must event. You know, there are auto shows held around the world every year, but this one in Detroit is simply the granddaddy of them all. Anybody who is anybody in the car world is here. Now, the question is, how does it maintain this lofty position? Well, we're going to try and find out this week as the North American International Auto Show celebrates its 100th anniversary.
We've grown enormously from the days of drapes and stands to now we have 3-story exhibition setups for our manufacturers, our exhibitors. We have international press totaling over 6,000. We have over 700 vehicles on the show floor. And of course, this is why the press comes. They want to see all of the worldwide introductions, whether they're production vehicles or concept vehicles.
If you're going to introduce a vehicle anywhere in North America, Detroit's really the place you want to be. And if you're an importer trying to establish your bona fides as a North American manufacturer, like Toyota, which engineers and designs vehicles here, Nissan, so on, again, this is a good place to do that because it positions you as actually a North American manufacturer and supplier, not just another importer duking it out for market share.
Please welcome Ford Motor Company's Executive Director of Design for the Americas, Peter Horbury.
There's a buzz in Detroit that really, a lot of shows try to get there, don't always succeed, but Detroit is Motor City, and really the show is perhaps the most car-focused show in the world. I love it here because we're all talking the same language.
I was with Chrysler Canada Limited, then Daimler Chrysler, for a total of 24 years, and this was the focal point of our efforts for much of the year. Very, very important. First impressions mean everything. This is where we made the first impressions.
We're jumping ahead. Hey!
The one that stands out, of course, was the launch of the NS minivan in 94, 95. The famous leapfrog trick where they tied this thing to a beam, it flew across the stage. It worked, it was tricky, but it was one of the great surprises. The Ram dropped from the ceiling, as I remember. That was another good one.
There are approximately 5 or 6 exhibit houses that actually construct all of the displays. And when you look at it, you can see almost 1,600 workers, all of these people manufacturing, actually building these displays, which in terms of a dollar value would approach nearly $300 million.
Hello, Canada. I had to finish my ice cream. We can find all kind of executives, like you said, and the marketing, the vice president, even presidents. Yesterday, for instance, in Nissan, Carlos Ghosn was here, and it was interesting to try to talk to this guy that is a huge president for the whole world. You know, for us, it's a great and important opportunity that we can have coming here to Detroit to be together with all these people, not only the media representative, that there are more than 5,000, but you can also meet with all the executive of marketing and all these important brands around the world.
They say over 6,000 journalists come here. Can this make or break a new model?
Well, it certainly gets it off to a flying start. I mean, if you pique the interest here, it'll fly everywhere. This is a very, very important audience.
New models get made and broken at car shows, big ones all the time. Let's think about the one that just jumps out of my mind right away in recent history is Pontiac Solstice. Arrived here as a concept car, 3 years later arrived here as a production car, big hit. Go back 10 years, 10, 12 years, remember the Volkswagen Concept 1. I mean, that was the precursor to the Volkswagen Beetle that arrived 6 or 7 years later. Whammo, another huge success. The other piece that happens at car shows is that by displaying new ideas, you get real feedback from real people who are not being filtered by marketing groups and focus groups and various spin factories. You can go out, if you're a car company executive, you can go out on the floor here and just wander around and listen to the comments.
We are the only internationally acclaimed show in North America. There are regional shows, good regional shows, but this is where the media come. And we, year after year, have been told by the manufacturers that they want to introduce their vehicles here in this location because this is where they get the bang for the buck.
Double your pleasure, double your fun, two trophies in one. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
On this edition of Test Drive, we take a look at the second generation of Suzuki's XL7. Now, from the moment you slip behind the wheel, you notice two things. It's bigger and it's far more conventional. Where the old XL7 was cramped and not very well thought through, the new vehicle is completely different. To begin with, it now rides on a unibody rather than the old and antiquated body on frame. This not only means a stiffer platform, it also eliminates the creaks and groans whenever the body is torqued. It's also appreciably bigger than the previous vehicle. The 2,857mm wheelbase is up by 56, and at just over 5 meters long, it has grown by 250mm. There's also plenty of width. Obviously, this helps interior accommodation, but more importantly, it gives the XL7 a larger footprint and a better place for the suspension to hang its hat. As with all the vehicles in this category, the XL7 is an either-or proposition. You either carry a ton of cargo to the tune of about 1,400 litres, or you carry 7 passengers. But with the third row deployed, there's very little cargo space, although in fairness to Suzuki, there is a very handy storage bin beneath the floor. Through the pylons, the XL7 surprised. Certainly there is some body roll, and it's not too difficult to make the P235/65R16 tyres slide into understeer. That said, when compared to its peers, the level of composure is a cut above. This comes through loud and clear as the response to steering input is fast and predictable, and when things do start to come unraveled, there's a good electronic stability control program waiting to rein in the wayward tendency. One of the highlights of this XL7 is found right under here. Now, this 3.6-litre V6 engine is more or less the same unit you'll find in the up-level Cadillac CTS. That means 252 horsepower and 243 pound-feet of torque. Now, on a normal day, that's plenty. On a day like today, well, it sucks from a visibility standpoint, but the density in the air has just given this engine an extra kick. It really is a very sweet power plant. That engine, which brings with it a 36% increase in horsepower and 32% increase in torque when compared to the outgoing model, is teamed with a willing 5-speed automatic. The beauty of the 5 gears is that first is tall, which gives a good launch off the line, while top gear is a true overdrive, and so the XL7 cruises the highway comfortably while making the best of the gasoline it burns. The test average of 10.8 litres per 100 kilometres proved to be better than the previous model in spite of the hike in size and power. This XL7 is loaded to the nines. Full navigation system, XM satellite radio, a ton of leather, power moonroof, power everything, decent gauges, and an automatic climate control system. There are, however, a couple of quibbles. To begin with, all the switch gear, well, it came from GM. It shouldn't. This is a Suzuki. The other problem, These are the power window switches down here by the shifter lever. The problem with that is it's not the first place you reach when you want to lower a window. The other problem, if you want to lower two windows at the same time, be prepared to use both hands. The new XL7 is offered in both front and all-wheel drive models. The latter is the only route to go. The system uses a rear diff-mounted electronically controlled clutch pack to deliver the power to the wheels that can use it best. ABS at its finest. From a practical standpoint, the system is fast enough to react to changes in traction that the system goes all but unnoticed when it's in operation. The lone drawback is the lack of a low-range gear set. This effectively limits any off-roading to a rutted cottage driveway. This new XL7 is a significantly better vehicle than the one it replaces. It's got more room, more utility, more comfort. It'll accommodate 7 passengers, and it's got one of the nicest V6s on the market. Now, in coming months, we're going to find out about some of its other attributes in depth. For instance, as we head into winter, how well the four-wheel drive system is going to function, because this vehicle is about to enter our long-term test fleet, and so we'll have regular updates.
Michelin, a better way forward.
This week, we're at the Auto Show in Detroit, and amongst all of these great cars, it is also home to the Michelin Challenge Design Competition. It's a platform for car manufacturers to look into the future and for designers to showcase their talent. What's extra special about the competition this year is that we have the youngest competitor ever, and he happens to be Canadian.
I'm Evan Roche from Canada.
He's been drawing since he was 3, and now at 14 years of age, Evan Roche from British Columbia is already designing his own future.
I was researching on the internet for some ways I could gain experience in the car design field, and on the Car Design News website I came across the Michelin Challenge Design article, and I decided to enter. I researched the main problems in the car safety industry, and I just tried to figure out the best way to achieve a solution. I came up with the Gecko Safety Coupe concept, and there were 3 technologies and also some design features. Well, the 3 technologies were MagnaSafe, an electromagnetic technology, a hood airbag system for pedestrian safety, and also a cockpit absorption system for the occupant safety.
His interest in technology and cars and that whole concept has just developed over the years. So when Michelin provided this opportunity, the safety competition, it was really exciting to see him be able to put it in action and to start developing, one of his key interests. So that was great.
This is called MagnaSafe technology. It uses electromagnetic energy to soften the impact of an accident. 2 cars are each fitted with these electromagnetic panels. When 2 cars come too close to each other, use the charges of magnets to repel the cars apart.
I'd like to thank Michelin for providing the opportunity to not just Evan, but to people around the world to allow them to have this input, this ability to contribute and to advance the industry, really.
Well, it's one of my biggest dreams, and now I'm achieving it. And I'm meeting all these great people, and I'm getting lots of great advice so I can get a head start to becoming a car designer. And seeing all the concept cars and the production car debuts is all great. And it's just wonderful, really.
Bevel is a single-purpose, multifunctional vehicle, that rare kind of vehicle that's all about the owner. In fact, we see the Bevel owner driving alone 90% of the time. Bevel's asymmetrical design is function-inspired, with distinct user zones. The driver's IT-heavy command center includes a seat surrounded by a special ribbon instrument panel that actually moves into position, with drive-by-wire steering, throttle, and brake controls. In the rear is Bevel's utility pet zone, with fold-flat passenger seats and a rear bench, creating a large open workspace designed for pure utility. The load floor is an easy clean aluminum surface with plenty of flexible anchors and tie downs. The tailgate includes a sturdy fold-down work surface, and its 110-volt power tool outlet is charged by Bevel's glass roof-mounted solar panels. Bevel carves out a space all its own, uniquely conceived, uniquely Nissan.
You know, the North American International Auto Show is celebrating its 100th anniversary, but it moved here into the Cobo Center in Detroit in 1965. That got over 1 million square feet of floor space, but despite the size, I'm telling you, it's user-friendly because most of the exhibits are on one floor. Unlike other auto shows that I've been to, like Frankfurt and Toronto, they put them in separate buildings, so you got to change buildings, you're going up and down escalators. Simply put, for visitors, it can be called cruel and unusual punishment. But enough of my whining. Let's head to the Quaker State Garage and join Bill Gardner.
Brad, you know how a lot of guys talk about the good old days? Well, the good old days in the automotive industry, if you talk about the early to mid 80s, weren't so good. They were just old. I mean, we had some terribly inefficient cars, poor fuel economy, poor drivability, exhaust emissions were pretty high, and engine electronics pretty much cured all that. Once we integrated computers with the engine management system, got really precise control over fuel injection and exhaust emissions, the power came back, drivability got better, everything got better. So now the next wave of engine electronics is controlling more and more components under the hood of the vehicle. And on the Explorer Sport Track that we've got this week, there's an interesting component that many other Ford light-duty trucks are using to gain better control over a component that was traditionally strictly a mechanical component, and that's the engine cooling fan. Now, on previous light-duty trucks, SUVs, and vans, in most cases where you had a rear-wheel drive or four-wheel drive vehicle, you had a mechanical cooling fan on the front with a fluid clutch, a viscous coupling between the fan blades and the water pump to try and gain some control over the engine cooling. In other words, to prevent overcooling in cold weather and allow the fan to couple up and turn at higher speed when you need maximum cooling. Now, what Ford has done on many of their light-duty trucks is now have the PCM, or powertrain control module, the computer that's running that engine electronically, also monitor and control the engine cooling fan. So they've gained much more precise control. Over here you can see the wiring bundle coming into the center section of the fan. Now remember, on previous designs that these fan blades were coupled to the water pump through a viscous clutch. We've still got that, but now we've got the PCM controlling it via this wiring harness. On previous designs, we had a bimetal spring or a thermostat that was part of the fan clutch, and that's what controlled when the fan blades coupled up and when they freewheeled. And down in there we can see the water pump pulley, the fan belt on this vehicle. I'm going to pull my hands out of there. Go ahead and start it up. You can see the water pump turning, the fan blades turning, and you can see that center section of the fan clutch stationary. Now, on a day like today when it's cold, we can idle that fan blade right down to a very low speed so we don't overcool the engine. And also, you know, when we shut the fan down, we save on engine power and fuel economy because turning those fan blades takes some engine power to do that. We don't need to do that on a cold day. But for example, if you're leaving Winnipeg in the wintertime, you might be leaving minus 30 Celsius. Maybe you're heading down to Mexico for a holiday, driving through the southeast corner of the States. You could run into middle 30 Celsius weather in just a couple of days drive, and your engine cooling system has to be able to adapt to that. So the engine cooling fan is going to idle down when it's cold, and then it's going to couple up when the engine's hot and give you the cooling you need, give you the best of both worlds. Just yet another example of how engine electronics are getting more and more precise control over all these mechanical components under the hood. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2007.
Back a bunch of years ago, when Jaguar was racing and winning at Le Mans, I asked John Egan, the president of Jaguar, if winning on Sunday really did translate into selling on Monday. And he said, well, it doesn't hurt. But to him, the most important thing was that the workers that come into the factory on Monday morning were wearing the same coveralls as the pit crew was wearing at Le Mans on Sunday afternoon. In other words, it was mostly a morale-building exercise for the internal people. And that same thing's happening here at the Detroit Auto Show, because for only the second time in history, one company has won both the North American Car of the Year and the North American Truck of the Year. That's General Motors. Now, winning for the new Silverado and truck was not a huge surprise. GM does good trucks, and they know they do good trucks. But for the Saturn Aura to win the best new car of the year, that was a bit of a surprise. But you can see the pride in the people. Everybody on the GM stand here is walking just a little bit taller, a little bit prouder. And you can bet the people in Fairfax, Kansas that build that car are feeling pretty good these days too. But it's also important from a consumer point of view. I mean, if you're at a cocktail party and somebody asks you, what did you buy? And you say, I bought a new Camry or a new Accord, nobody questions you. They say, oh, that makes sense. But if you bought a Buick or a Pontiac, people look at you like you're from outer space. It's, why'd you do that? You say, well, I got a good deal, or my brother-in-law's a salesman or something like that. But now you can say, I bought a Saturn Aura because it's car of the year. And that matters to consumers. But there's one thing I gotta warn General Motors about. Don't get complacent. If you fall back into the trap that you were in 20 years ago thinking nobody can do it as good as we can and we've got the cars to prove it, you're gonna get your lunch eaten, because Toyota and Honda, they're still hanging out right back there. I'm Jim Kenzie.
For once, I wish Jim Kenzie had an opinion on something. But you know, speaking of the best in class for 2007, the real big one is quickly approaching, because in just a couple of weeks, we'll have our 1-hour Car of the Year special. Now, you can get involved and vote for your best by going on to motoringtv.com or link to us through tsn.ca. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
The interior is really a modern take on some of the 60s vans that you used to see driving around with shag carpet in them. But what we've done is we've updated it to make it really look futuristic. And a lot of the inspiration came from Stanley Kubrick's 2001 Space Odyssey, which is a seminal film as well.
TSN's Motoring 2007 has been brought to you by Q from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Michelin, a better way forward.